A stalemate. The deeply divided Democratic Party still can't get it together on that so-called infrastructure bill. And it's threatening to blow up President Biden's agenda for expanding big government. So what's the beef between the two sides? Brody Carter has the story.
Despite days of negotiations, the divided Democrats in the House still could not reach an agreement on their spending plans. So they postponed their vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill yet again.
We will not be able to vote for the infrastructure bill until the reconciliation bill has passed.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi delayed a vote for the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. Progressive Democrats threatened to vote the bill down unless there's progress on the president's massive $3.5 trillion spending and climate change measure being considered through a Senate reconciliation bill.
Look, we are in the same place we've always been. We put out an offer for $3.5 trillion, and it has all of our legislative language.
But centrist Democrat Senators Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin say that's far too expensive, with Manchin concerned about the plan's welfare provisions and offering up a much smaller price tag.
My top line has been 1.5 because I believe in my heart that what we can do and what the needs we have right now and what we can afford to do without basically changing our whole society to an entitlement mentality.
While Democrats continue negotiations among themselves, Republicans say it's an agenda the country can't afford.
It's no longer one bill. It's reconciliation with infrastructure. That's not something we want. That's not something we can afford, and that's not something we support.
There was one agreement with support from both parties. Congress passed and the president signed legislation to avoid a partial federal shutdown, keeping the government running through December 3rd. But on the infrastructure measure and the $3.5 trillion social welfare bill, the president and congressional Democrats will try again today. But they face a potentially devastating setback if they can't overcome the deep divisions in the party. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Well, our CBN News political analyst, David Brody, is with us right now. David, have the progressive actually taken over the Democratic Party?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Look, Pat, can we do a quick history lesson? I'll give it to you in 20 seconds or less. The Progressive Caucus in the House of Representatives has 96 folks in it, right? Okay, so that's about half, a little bit less than half of the Democrat Party. Well, guess what? When it was formed in 1991, it was 5 people. It was Bernie Sanders, a couple of socialists, and that was about it. Now, 96. So when they stick together as a progressive voting bloc, they are more than a force to be reckoned with. They are, in essence, a big part, if not the majority part, of the Democratic Party. And so that's been the rub all along. And you've got the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars, and you can just go down the list. It's, we always talk about the squad. Let's step back for a second. This is a progressive party that has grown so much over the last, what is it? I'm going to have to do the calculation, about 30 years or so.
Well, they want to put socialism into America. Are they going to be able to pass that, do you think?
Well, look, this is social engineering. There's no doubt about it. That's what they want to do. And look, don't take my word for it. Just listen to what they're saying. That's exactly what they want to do. Now, having said that, even though there was a setback on Thursday, there most likely will be a vote on Friday. The question then becomes, what's that vote going to look like if it even happens? I've got to be honest with you, Pat. I got to tell you, I think the Democrats are going to get something done here. We know it's not going to be $3.5 trillion. And once again, just to step back for a second, right? There's the $1.1 trillion hard infrastructure bill, but it has to be tied to this other reconciliation bill, which started at $3.5 trillion. That's what the progressives want. But ultimately, Joe Manchin says $1.5 trillion. I think ultimately they'll probably get to around $2 trillion or so, which is $2 trillion of social engineering, human infrastructure, if you will. And I have a feeling that's where this may end up. It may not happen on Friday, may not happen in the next couple of days, but I think ultimately that's where Democrats have to get, because it's too big to fail for them. Literally too big on a price tag, but also politically in 2022. They cannot have this fall apart and have egg on their face after all of this. They're already in trouble in 2022. This would be a certain death knell if they couldn't get anything done.
David, they've lied about the fact the thing is paid for. It's not paid for at all. It's going to be higher taxes. It'll be more regulation. It will kill the economy, and it will destroy America. I mean, what's the deal?
Well, that's exactly right, Pat. And let's remember, the hard infrastructure bill, everybody's like, oh, we all need bridges and roads. Okay, well, hold on for a second. It's only 10% of the bill. And we're talking about the hard infrastructure bill. We haven't even gotten to what you're talking about, Pat, which is the social infrastructure, that reconciliation bill. But you're absolutely right. You know, Joe Biden the other day said this is not a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. He said it's a $0 reconciliation bill. And then after I needed some smelling salts to revive myself after I heard those comments, I said, wait a minute, what is he talking about? Well, he says the whole thing's going to be paid for. Yeah, right. And I've got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd love to sell you.
David, we have had some question about the competency of the president. Do you think he's mentally competent? Is he in charge of the government, or is Nancy Pelosi running things, or is the squad running things? Who's really in charge of our government now, do you think?
Well, let's be clear. You know, he calls himself a gaffe machine. It's not my words, it's his words. I mean, and it's been more than a gaffe machine. It's gotten very, very concerning in all facets, in all political parties. There have been people on the Republican side literally saying that we have a mentally declining president right in front of us. This is the Republicans speaking. But in answer to your question, Pat, there's one person. It's Ron Klain, the White House chief of staff, that is, in essence, the maestro that's stirring this whole drink. And you've got Joe Biden, but, you know, Kamala Harris, I guess she's busy down at the border because she's the border czar or something like that. That's what I've heard. At least that's what I've read. So other than that, there's been talk about invoking the 25th Amendment. I mean, this has been some serious talk in Washington. But, you know, look, folks voted for him, and here we are.
Thanks.